The Sacred Teachings of All Ages, the Hiramic Legend, page 243. Other authors consider Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius as the three murderers of the sun, inasmuch as Osiris was murdered by Typhon, to whom were assigned the 30 degrees of the constellations of Scorpio. In the Christian mysteries also, Judas signifies the scorpion, and the 30 pieces of silver for which he betrayed his Lord represent the number of degrees in that sign. Having been struck by Libra, the state, Scorpio, the church, and Sagittarius, the mob, the sun See Hiram is secretly born through the darkness by the signs of Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, buried over the brow of a hill, the vernal equinox. Capricorn has for its symbol an old man with a scythe in his hand. This is Father Time, a wayfarer who is symbolized in Masonry as straightening out the ringlets of a young girl's hair. If the Weeping Virgin be considered a symbol of Virgo, and Father Time with his scythe a symbol of Capricorn, then the interval of 90 degrees between these two signs will be found to correspond to that occupied by the three murderers. Esoterically, the urn containing the ashes of See Hiram represents the human heart. Saturn, the old man who lives at the North Pole and brings with him to the children of men a sprig of evergreen, the Christmas tree, is familiar to the little folks under the name of Santa Claus, for he brings each winter the gift of a new year. Of course, also I could add that Santa and Satan have the same letters, so many people have been worshiping this kind of shit, and they've never even had any clue. I never had any clue that Christmas is really the worship of Saturn. You never know, huh? The martyred sun is discovered by Aries, a fellow craftsman, and at the vernal equinox the process of raising him begins. This is finally accomplished by the Lion of Judah, who in ancient times occupied the position of the keystone of the royal arch of heaven. The precession of the equinoxes causes various signs to play the role of the murderers of the sun during the different ages of the world, but the principle involved remains unchanged. Such is the cosmic story of See Hiram, the universal benefactor, the fiery architect of the divine house, who carries with him to the grave that lost word which, when spoken, raises all life to power and glory. According to Christian mysticism, when the lost word is found, it is discovered in a stable surrounded by beasts and marked by a star. After the sun leaves Leo, writes Robert Hewitt Brown, the days begin to grow unequivocally shorter as the sun declines toward the autumnal equinox, to be again slain by the 3 autumnal months, lie dead through the 3 winter ones, and be raised again by the 3 vernal ones. Each year the great tragedy is repeated and the glorious resurrection takes place, unquote. See Hiram is termed dead because in the average individual the cosmic creative forces are limited in their manifestation to purely physical and correspondingly materialistic expression. Obsessed by his belief in the reality and permanence of physical existence, man does not correlate the material universe with the blank north wall of the temple. As the solar light symbolically is said to die as it approaches the winter solstice, so the physical world may be termed the winter solstice of the spirit. Reaching the winter solstice, the sun apparently stands still for 3 days, and then rolling away the stone of winter, begins its triumphal march north towards the summer solstice. The condition of ignorance may be likened to the winter solstice of philosophy, spiritual understanding to the summer solstice. From this point of view, initiated into the mysteries becomes the vernal equinox of the spirit, at which time the See Hiram in man crosses from the realm of mortality into that of eternal life. The autumnal equinox is analogous to the mythological fall of man, at which time the human spirit descended into the realms of Hades by being immersed in the illusion of terrestrial existence. In an essay on the beautiful, Plotinus describes the refining effect of beauty upon the unfolding consciousness of man. Commissioned to decorate the everlasting house, see Hiram Abiff as the embodiment of the beautifying principle. Beauty is essential to the natural unfoldment of the human soul. The mysteries held that man, in part at least, was the product of his environment. Therefore, they considered it imperative that every person be surrounded by objects which would evoke the highest and noblest sentiments. They proved that it was possible to produce beauty in life by surrounding life with beauty. They discovered that symmetrical bodies were built by souls continuously in the presence of symmetrical bodies, that noble thoughts were produced by minds surrounded by examples of mental nobility. Conversely, if a man were forced to look upon an ignoble or asymmetrical structure, it would arouse within him a sense of ignobility, which would provoke him to commit ignoble deeds. If an ill-proportioned building were erected in the midst of a city, there would be ill-proportioned children born in that community. And men and women, gazing upon the asymmetrical structure, would live inharmonious lives. Thoughtful men of antiquity realized that the great philosophers were the natural products of the aesthetic ideals of architecture, music, and art, established as the standards of the cultural systems of the time. The substitution of the discord of the fantastic for the harmony of the beautiful constitutes one of the great tragedies of every civilization. Not only were the savior gods of the ancient world beautiful, but each performed a ministry of beauty, seeking to effect man's regeneration by arousing within him the love of the beautiful. A renaissance of the golden age of fable can be made possible only by the elevation of beauty to its rightful dignity as the all-pervading, idealizing quality in the religious, ethical, sociological, scientific, and political departments of life. The Dionysiac architects were consecrated to the raising of their master spirit, cosmic beauty, from the sepulchre of material ignorance and selfishness by erecting buildings which were such perfect exemplars of symmetry and majesty that they were actually magical formula by which was evoked the spirit of the martyred beautifier entombed within a materialistic world. In the Masonic mysteries, the triune spirit of man, the light delta, is symbolized by the three Grand Masters of the Lodge of Jerusalem. As God is the pervading principle of three worlds, in each of which he manifests as an active principle, so the spirit of man, partaking of the nature of divinity, dwells upon three planes of being, the supreme, the superior, and the inferior spheres of the Pythagoreans. At the gate of the inferior sphere, the underworld, or dwelling place of mortal creatures, stands the guardian of Hades, the three-headed dog, Cerberus, Cerberus, I'll spell that, Cerberus, however you want to pronounce that, who is analogous to the three murderers of the Hiramic legend. According to this symbolic interpretation of the triune spirit, see Hiram as the third or incarnating part, the master builder who through all ages erects living temples of flesh and blood as shrines of the Most High. See Hiram comes forth as a flower and is cut down. He dies at the gates of matter. He is buried in the elements of creation, but like Thor, he swings his mighty hammer in the fields of space, sets the primordial atoms in motion, and establishes order out of chaos. So we see why the Marvel movie industry, puts out those movies involving these ancient pagan gods. Those are just initiating the masses, the profane, turning them basically into Masons without portfolio and brainwashing them into this New World Order thinking, New World Order mindset. But anyways, as the potentiality of cosmic power within each human soul, see Hiram lies waiting for man by the elaborate ritualism of life to transmute potentiality into divine potency. As the sense perceptions of the individual increase, however, man gains even greater control over his various parts, and the spirit of life within gradually attains freedom. The three murderers represent the laws of the inferior world, birth, growth, and decay, which ever frustrate the plan of the builder. To the average individual, physical birth to the average individual, physical birth actually signifies the death of C. Hiram, and physical death, the resurrection of C. Hiram. To the initiate, however, the resurrection of the spiritual nature is accomplished without the intervention of physical death. The curious symbols found in the base of Cleopatra's Needle, now standing in Central Park, New York, were interpreted as being of first Masonic significance by S.A. Zola, 33rd degree, past Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Egypt. Masons' marks and symbols are to be found in the stones of numerous public buildings, not only in England and on the continent, but also in Asia. In his Indian Masons, marks for the Mughal dynasty, A. Gorham describes scores of markings appearing on the walls of buildings such as the Taj Mahal, the Jama Masjid, and I'm not good at pronouncing some of these, sorry. The last word that I pronounced, I'm probably wrong, is spelled Masgid. And that famous Masonic structure, the Kutab Minar. According to those who regard Masonry as an outgrowth of the secret society of architects and builders, which for thousands of years formed a caste of master craftsmen, C. Hiram was the Tyrian Grand Master of a worldwide organization of artisans with headquarters in Tyre. Their philosophy consisted of incorporating into the measurements and ornamentation of temples, palaces, and mausoleums, fortresses, and other public buildings their knowledge of the laws controlling the universe. Every initiated workman was given a hieroglyphic with which he marked the stones he trod to show to all posterity that he thus dedicated to the supreme architect of the universe each perfected product of his labor. Concerning Mason's marks, Robert Freet Gould writes, "It is very remarkable that these marks are to be found in all countries. In the chambers of the Great Pyramid at Giza, on the underground walls of Jerusalem, in Herculaneum in Pompeii, on Roman walls and Grecian temples, in Hindustan, Mexico, Peru, and Asia Minor, as well as on the great ruins of England, France, Germany, Scotland, Italy, Portugal, and Spain." Unquote. From this viewpoint, the story of C. Hiram may well represent the incorporation of the divine secrets of architecture into the actual parts and dimensions of earthly buildings. The 3 degrees of the craft bury the Grand Master, the great arcanum, in the actual structure they erect, after first having killed him with the builder's tools by reducing the dimensionless spirit of cosmic beauty to the limitations of concrete form. These abstract ideals of architecture can be resurrected, however, by the Master Mason, who, by meditating upon the structure, releases therefrom the divine principles of architectonic philosophy incorporated or buried within it. Thus, the physical building is actually the tomb or embodiment of the creative ideal of which its material dimensions are but the shadow. Moreover, the Hiramic legend may be considered to embody the vicissitudes of philosophy itself. As institutions for the dissemination of ethical culture, the pagan mysteries were the architects of civilization. Their power and dignity were personified in C. Hiram, the master builder, but they eventually fell a victim to the onslaughts of that recurrent trio of state, church, and mob. They were desecrated by the state, jealous of their wealth and power by the early church, fearful of their wisdom, and by the rabble and soldiery incited by both state and church. As C. Hiram, when raised from his grave, whispers the Master Mason's word, which was lost through his untimely death, so, according to the tenets of philosophy, the reestablishment or resurrection of the ancient mysteries will result in the rediscovery of that secret teaching without which civilization must continue in a state of spiritual confusion and uncertainty. When the mob governs, man is ruled by ignorance. When the church governs, he is ruled by superstition. And when the state governs, he is ruled by fear. And I'm interjecting in here. That is, so this is what ignorance, superstition, and fear mean to them. And this is what is the 3 main enemies of theirs, which is what their goal is to overthrow these 3 enemies of theirs. Ignorance, superstition, and fear. The mob, which is us, represented by us. Church, which is modern Orthodox religion, which is what they're doing through whatever means they can. And the state, which is our modern constitutional government, which to them is, just Obviously a form of small-mindedness. Before men can live together in harmony and understanding, ignorance must be transmuted into wisdom, superstition into an illumined faith, and fear into love. Despite statements to the contrary, Masonry is a religion seeking to unite God and man into God. I interjected that. By elevating its initiates to that level of consciousness, I'm adding in again, which is what's that level of consciousness? The Christ consciousness, cosmic consciousness, wherein they can behold with clarified vision the workings of the great architect of the universe. From age to age, the vision of a perfect civilization, we already know what that means, right, guys, is preserved as the ideal for mankind. In the midst of that civilization shall stand a mighty university, wherein both the sacred and secular sciences concerning the mysteries of life will be freely taught to all who will assume the philosophic life. Here, creed and dogma will have no place, the superficial will be removed, and only the essential be preserved. The world will be ruled by its most illumined minds. Let me repeat that again. The world will be ruled by its most illumined minds, and each will occupy the position for which he is admirably fitted. The great university will be divided into grades, admission to which will be through preliminary tests or initiations. Here mankind will be instructed in the most sacred, most secret, and most enduring of all mysteries, symbolism. Here the initiate will be taught that every visible object, every abstract thought, every emotional reaction is but the symbol of an eternal principle. Here mankind will learn that Hiram, the truth, lies buried in every atom of cosmos, that every form is a symbol, and every symbol the tomb of an eternal verity. Through education, spiritual, mental, moral, and physical, man will learn to release living truths from their lifeless coverings. The perfect government of the earth must be patterned eventually after that divine government by which the universe is ordered. In that day, when perfect order is reestablished, New World Order, with peace and universal good triumphant, men will no longer seek for happiness, for they shall find it welling up within themselves. Dead hopes, dead aspirations, dead virtues shall rise from their graves, and the spirit of beauty and goodness, repeatedly slain by ignorant men, shall again be the master of work. Then shall sages sit upon the seats of the mighty, and the gods walk with men. Again, this is exactly directly from Manly P. Hall's own words. As you see, it is not a conspiracy theory when people like me and others are saying that the agenda of these secret societies is for them to rule the world. At least the ones at the top, the adepts, the most illumined, for it's quoted, and I can quote them from their own writings, as I just did. The world will be ruled by its most illumined minds. Secret Teachings of All Ages, page 247. And I'm not making it up either, where he talks about the Masonic legend in itself as an esoteric initiation ritual about the resurrection of the mystery schools as the supreme religion of the world, and the establishment of a utopia, of a one world order. Not making that up. And by the way, this is coming from Manly P. Hall, who is known to be Masonry's greatest scholar. And before then, he was part of a Rosicrucian Brotherhood through his, his mother. So, he's also the guy who I've quoted many times here. It's called for a New World Order. But, they used to, They used to have just like a 20, 30-second, whatever, whatnot, quote of Manly P. Hall. There we go. Leave you with this.
We are very largely divided in our convictions about the realities of things. And unless something is done to overcome this division, we will never be able to cooperate in a new world order of thinking. The time has come that we've either got to discover a spiritual value in our own natures and do something about it, or we're never going to be able to build this new world that we so bravely hope to find.